Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russel Brand. I speak to Jack Posobiec today, the online pundit and content creator whose background as a naval intelligence officer gives him a degree of veracity. Everyone's got an angle. Mine's Hollywood, innit? Candace Owens, black. Ben Shapiro, Jewish lawyer. Tucker, I was on the mainstream. Theo Von, I'm a hillbilly. Joe Rogan, OG, difficult to argue with him. UFC, a lot of affiliations, early adopter, difficult to criticize. Charlie Kirk, God rest his soul, canonized by death. But he was amazing in life as well. Who else is there? Jimmy Dore, I'm a curmudgeon. Like, everyone's got an angle. Everyone's got an angle. But this is a time of endless refractoring and shattering and mad and giddying fragmentation. So we're going to have to find a crucifix amongst the angles. And me and Jack Posobiec did find exactly that. We talk a lot about how this sort of space is fragmenting, and I think it's like a heated up plasma, or a wild and transcendent slur. We've got an odd, peculiar sort of plasmic sludge that we're all operating in some hazy, fluxy time of madness. It's a pretty good chat. I think you'll like it. My favourite bit is we do the rosary in it, because Jack gave me this. I think he gave me that one at Turning Point USA, the one where I last see Charlie, where, the student action one in Tampa. Anyway, so we talk about that. We talk about Candace. We talk about how, the space is going sort of all nuts. How, and I don't know, you'll like it, I think. And then there's the prayer. It's pretty good. Anyway, watch it. That's the point of this, isn't it? Hey, if you don't have Rumble Premium yet, get Rumble Premium now. Subscribe to it. It helps me financially. And remember, check out Reborn, my glorious new brand. Enter the competition for every dollar you spend, you get. I mean, it varies, doesn't it? You're going to have to go up to the website and chalk that stuff out. It's impossible to do because one of it's 20, one of it's 25, one of it's 50. I can't do that in one sentence. Anyway, check out the link. Check out Reborn. Yeah, praise the Lord. Here I am with Jack Posobiec.
Here we go. Don't try to rosary check me. Don't try to rosary check me.
I rosary checked you so hard there, you didn't know what hit you for a minute, did you?
I had it right here. I had it right here. What are you talking about? I was already ready. But that wasn't just for you, because it's here every day.
Jack, mate, well, do you know when the last time we saw each other was? Yeah, oh yeah.
The last time we saw each other, I think we saw each other in, was it in Washington at the Maha action? We had Maha action at the club.
I thought it was Tampa, and I thought it was the Turning Point student action while Charlie was still
Turning Point
alive.
after that? You might be right. You may have seen it. So. That's right. I think that was after the Mahas when we had that event.
Don't you think everything's escalating in a way that's even someone that works in social media has some access to people with a lot of power? Don't you think that things are escalating in a faster and in more absurd and surprising ways than you imagined possible?
Well, look, since if you go back at all, everything changed on the day Charlie Kirk was murdered. And when Charlie was murdered, it was an act of such profound evil and such profound demonic energy that at first it was met with this incredible response of prayer, of togetherness, of fellowship, of people bringing themselves together, coming together, self-sufficient, self-organizing, self-actuated, self-activated, and it was incredible. And we had the memorial, and Erica did such a fantastic job. But then that moment passed. And then I think what we're starting to find now is that without Charlie, and with people realizing this, okay, Donald Trump, he's going to be, leaving office in a couple of years. So he's sort of, on a different trajectory now. And I'm not saying he is, the perception for a lot of people that there's now a sense that people think there's a vacuum. People think that there is a hole, a gap, and something, a black hole that needs to be filled. And rather than what Charlie would have wanted, or a lot of people wanted, there's two ways, right? You could build yourself up, build coalitions, build friendships, build community, and then gather people together. Or you could see that opportunity and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stab this guy in the back next to me so he doesn't walk up and take that spot. And I'm going to stab him, and everyone's stabbing each other in the back. And look, in Washington, D.C., unfortunately, that seems to be par for the course because that's human nature, isn't it? That's the human nature. That's sinfulness. That is the zero-sum thought of what we're trying to, this bestial nature that we're trying to, and called by God and Christ to overcome. But unfortunately, human nature is still undefeated this side of heaven.
This worldliness that you're describing, people jockeying, lobbying, and even metaphorically killing in order to get position, is definitely an important part of it. But what I keep thinking, Jack, is that I didn't realize Charlie Kirk was actually, and I actually want to contest to a degree from a political and strategic perspective, the significance and importance of Charlie Kirk. Up until Charlie Kirk's death, I would have said Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro have more influence than Charlie Kirk. Maybe I'm wrong about that, because I suppose that I wouldn't have been then accounting for the activist impact of Turning Point and its very deliberate role in recruiting young voters for the Republican and Party generally, I suppose, and the MAGA movement specifically. But I also knew about what he was doing around vote machine integrity and all that. I spoke to him about that in Milwaukee. Anyway, I still feel like posthumously Charlie Kirk is a different object, obviously, than he was in life, and that he's being used differently, both for good and for ill. What I'm wondering is, do you see and wonder if there is an almost occultist component to his murder? And do you wonder if the void you're talking about goes beyond human systems of power and is something more profound, but spiritual, certainly? For example, me as a person that's not from your country, who supported, in the vaguest sense, because I don't vote or anything, Trump, because I like the way he was like tackling media, and I think he's funny and all of that stuff. I'm not really when I say I'm not Republican, I feel like primarily now I'm a Christian. And before that, before I was a Christian, I still, what I felt before I came to our Lord, I felt like no human institutions or political parties or bodies can ever serve the way that I see the world, because they are all by their nature corrupted. Now, as a Christian, one of the things that's been sort of exciting and mind-blowing about coming to Christ is that all of the things I felt anyway are in here. Like when Ephesians talks about dark power and spiritual heavenly realms, or when Luke in the Temptations of Christ has Satan saying, I'm in control of this world, authority has been given to me to run the world. And when our Lord says, when Judas is about to, come get him, like, I have to go now to the prince of this world, when it's saying evil power runs the world, how is that so different from Alex Jones circa 1999 or David Icke always? They're talking about demonic forces. And when Tucker Carlson's saying, I got sort of attacked by a demon, all of us are talking, really, isn't the main conversation in America right now that America's government is not controlled by the people you think it is? Some people would just drill down and say it's Israel and Israeli interests. Other people would say, I'm of the Occupy sort of generation. I'm like a little older than that, really. But Occupy really summarized where I was, Jack. Oh, it's been captured by financial interests and lobbying interests and donor interests. And as I've got, weird really that I didn't always see the esoteric component, because I've always read people that are interested in occultism and esotericism. Anyway, it's only coming into Christ, I would say, Jack, that this stuff is kind of compounded. So back to my original question. Who are the most significant players in this space? Are we talking about spiritual warfare? Because not only is there the death of Charlie Kirk, there's the ongoing Epstein saga, with now people publicly saying stuff about Donald Trump I'm sort of staggered by to even sort of see or read if you occupy the same quarters of the internet that I do. So doesn't it seem to you that the shift that's taking place is sort of bigger than the power dynamics of American politics or even global politics, and is starting to bear some kind of hue of something else?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that it's that American power dynamics are bigger than the shift. No, the shift is definitely bigger, and because what we're really, but they are emblematic of it. These are things we can point to: the Epstein files, whether they were released or not, the death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination attempt of Trump. These are things we can point to because we see the dynamics of the deeper power, the greater power at play. So these are just this, it's like an iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg, but you understand that there is a deeper sense. So these are the things we can point to. Now, what's driving it is obviously a much bigger question. You mentioned occultism, you mentioned demonic forces. I couldn't agree more. I absolutely couldn't agree more. And when we see some of the evidence that's now coming out about the relationship, this toxic relationship that the killer that Tyler Robinson, this guy up on the roof, and he was involved with these strange groups, transgenderism, furryism, doing drugs on what they called black market hormone replacement therapy, messing around with these discords, messing around with very extreme pornography, and wondering where all of those pipelines are coming in to the human mind, as well as as well as Thomas Matthew Crooks, who apparently was getting involved in a lot of the same things. I think about what was done to this country during COVID, because when you look at these individuals, so they're roughly around the same age band, as well as Luigi Maggioni. It was around the same age band, 20 to 22. And that means their formative years were spent under lockdown. Those years that you would have been in high school, when you're in an older teenager, you're, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's when you're running around. That's when, for me, I was, you could run around, you have 8 friends, you chasing girls, you're living life to the fullest. But for them, they were stuck inside, and they were forced inside by a government. And I don't want to make this all about COVID, but I want to talk about the forces behind it, because they trapped you and they put you in front of a piece of glass, and then they projected whatever they wanted on that piece of glass directly into your mind, and told you that if you didn't take the vaccine, if you didn't go along with social distancing, that you were going to die, that you were going to kill your family, that you were going to kill grandma. And we look at this operation that was done on such a massive scale to so many people, and you really have to ask the question, was all of this really being done in the common good, or perhaps in the common ill, in the common bad, in malpractice, malfeasance? And so when we ask what's really going on, I think I'm a believer in the fourth turning theory. Are you familiar with the fourth turning theory? I think we're in it. I think we're in it. I think there's a historical sort of force that's just sort of, this cycle that goes through human history. I think that we've tried to say that it wasn't going to happen, and 80 years since World War II, and, that we're not going to do it. We're going to break out of it. And I think that those historical forces are here, and we're going through the period of turmoil right now. And what's interesting, though, is that they say, this is where I do find hope, is that when you go through the period of turmoil, it's those who can remember time before that become the leaders and the guides of the people out of it. So you can guide people out if you remember what life was like before the instability. And so that means that the next turning will happen, the first turning, and then a second. And so we have to get through this fourth turning as safely as we can, as securely as we can, prevent World War III from happening, which many forces want to happen, prevent a kinetic civil war from happening. And I went on CNN and they said, are we facing a civil war? And I said, my friend's in a box right now. What else do you call that other than asymmetric civil warfare? We're seeing these forces. There are people trying to start a civil war. There are people trying to start World War III. So you need to fight against that if you want good to win, because if you don't, we will see inexplicable evil far beyond what was unleashed in World War II.
We can't make this content without the work of our sponsors and the collaboration with them, unless you're going to get yourself Rumble Premium, in which case you can extract this. But I actually think the adverts are quite good. I have fun while doing them anyway. I try and make them a laugh. Get into it. Here's a quick message now. Over 70% of Americans are served by water systems that have fluoride added to the supply. Yes, fluoride, the stuff in toothpaste which we spit out into the sink. Fluoride has been linked in multiple studies to cognitive damage and lower IQ scores in kids. So why do the government want us drinking it? Is it because they want to calcify the brain, make us malleable, supine and hopeless? Of course it is. The first thing I noticed with Cove Pure is the taste. This is how water's supposed to taste. Pure, clean, no aftertaste. No drilling, no plumbers, I just fill it and press a button. Ever since I started drinking Cove Pure, I can't get enough water down my stinking gullet. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And it's simple too. All you have to do is push a button and you've got delicious water at your disposal. I've started splashing this stuff on my nipples. You can choose any temperature, hot or cold. Or lukewarm. Never lukewarm. Always hot or cold. And how much you want to spend, so you're not just guessing how much you drink. Cove Pure helps you stay hydrated. So don't wait for the government to sort out pure water. Do it yourself. Head to covepure.com/brand. Right now, they're giving my viewers a special holiday discount of $250. Get it before the sale ends. That's covepure.com/brand. Splash it on your nipples if you need to. Back to the content. I feel that where our perspectives may differ is that I don't believe that we can collapse our Christian faith into the simple support of a currently extant political movement or party, because I know that let me focus on something.
Well, no, I actually would agree with you there.
Yeah,
I would.
So, like, that means by definition we're talking about institutional change, and that's a sort of a kind of radicalism, and I don't know where that's coming from. You're probably right to say that it's sort of a kind of a post-Trump, late Trump thing, but you know enough to know that there are sort of movements within republicanism that are jockeying for power and supremacy in much the way you describe people in independent media space lobbying for position in the post-Charlie Kirk abyss, which again I wouldn't have considered to have been as vast as it subsequently appeared to be posthumously, which I'd be interested to hear what you think about that as well. A few things though. They say someone that I really, really admire, like RFK, I really admire him. You know, obviously there are a lot of restrictions, bureaucratic and institutional restrictions that prevent him from directing his authority in the way that you might imagine he would if he was given free rein to govern, rule, lead, even within the confines of the HHS in the manner that you think his ideals and his beliefs would have him. And like, now one argument is that is just institutions and the way things are and bloody red tape. But when we talk about, like as you did, the COVID period, why did that happen? Why did that get engineered? Who did benefit from that scenario, Jack? And how is it possible for us to extract that admittedly unique time period from the subsequent following era, i.e. whatever interest benefited from COVID, those interests were enhanced and empowered further by the COVID era. So presumably then those powers are now more entrenched and more able to demonstrate their will than they were pre-COVID. So the fact that Trump won an election and he's a maverick and an outsider to a degree is only, I think, of limited relevance. And I think we're beginning, what I contest, Jack, is that we're beginning to see that we're beginning to see that in spite of people's, thanks man, optimism around Trump, that's really cool, with the reality of contemporary politics, not just in the way that we've always assumed, like, oh, bloody, it's all, it's always the same. People make all sorts of pledges when they're campaigning that they're unable to fulfill when they're governing. I think it's darker than that. I don't know how to shake it down and break it down ethnically, and I wouldn't want to, or even ideologically, but the way I am comfortable breaking it down is, in the Bible, it says that human institutions and governments have been captured by, inverted commas, but in the Bible, not inverted commas, the devil. So when COVID happens, that seems like an attempt to assert a kind of new global power. And in the post-COVID period, we're seeing that power at work. And I don't think it can be reduced just to cultural forces like, Mamdani getting in New York, or that lad being into taking pills to reduce the size of his penis. I think it's interesting that people are... say Candace Owens, who you've got to know and I know, and like the kind of the direction that she's going in since coming to faith and in the post-Charlie Kirk period, she's avant-garde, let's call it, in her manner of reporting, and certainly we would have to agree that she's very brave. Now, I wonder how this sort of space can survive such variety of opinion, where people that would have been friends, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, all of these people are now like sort of scattering across the space. And I think it must be very confusing for anyone who isn't able to say, well, what I believe in is Jesus. Victory is assured. My job is to die unto myself that he can be reborn in me. What does that look like? I'm going to try to work through it. Now, so how do you think, this is paradigm breaking is what I'm saying. And if something's paradigm breaking, it can't be resolved with the sort of simple fealty to existing leaders or institutions.
No, I think that's right. And, I've got my rosary here as well. And, we're rosary checking, folks. We're rosary checking. And it does explain when you live through positive times, you live through times of stability, when life is easy, when the economy is doing well, when things seem relatively stable, that's when we think, who needs religion? Forget about religion. Forget about the Bible. Forget about all that. That's what grandmom used to listen to. That's the pastors and priests, and she just goes there. It's for old people with white hair. We don't need any of that because we've got, look at everything we have. We've got our iPhones, we've got our tablets, we've got our streaming services, we've got everything that we need. And this came from technology. This came from science. This didn't come from God. And so the problem is that eventually when you make science your new God, and you put science first, when you put material things, and science is great, by the way, I'm not against science, but when you put those material things in a place of deification, when you put them in a place of worship, it then gets you to a point where you've totally forgotten what the point of religion is in the first place. It's not technology, because the technology is always going to be changing. We've always changed from the days of rocks to the days of ships to the days of the airplane and the space shuttle. What we need is a moral core. And the moral core can only come from the deep, undying, unbroken connection with Christ Jesus. And if you don't have that, and that's what the Bible has presented to us, that's why when you look at the scribes, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were uncovered, right, they were able for the first time to find original copies, in many cases, original copies of the Bible from 2,000 years ago. And then so we could tell and test, did those translators of the Bible make edits? Did they change things? Did they, along as it was passed down, is this the actual word of God? And what's amazing is it was almost 1-to-1 when they did the research, and then they checked to see, okay, well, this is the original Hebrew and some Greek. So how do we match up? It was a 1-to-1 match. Those people who transcribed the word of God, they were not doing that because they wanted power in this world. They were doing that because they were sending us a message, because they truly believed it was the word of God. And this is before we had the printing press and Gutenberg comes along and all the rest of it. All you had was a hand and a quill and a feather and a vial of ink, and there you go, the well of ink. And so they preserved it because that's the preservation of our civilization. That's the preservation of our world. That's the preservation of our humanity. And if we drift away from it, that's when humanity falls apart. And that's when we can become unhumaned. And that's when we unhuman ourselves and we embark in unhumanity. This is the difference between man and beast. So when I was talking about the furry, the transhumanism, transgenderism, what does it all mean? It all means a break with our humanity, to become unhumanized. Whereas I would contend, and I would argue to everyone, that to become closer to Christ is to actually become more in touch with your human self. And the closer that you are, the more human you will actually become, which is a strange thing, because I'm not talking about in the physical sense, I'm talking in a metaphysical sense. You will understand yourself more the more you understand Christ, and the more you understand what his role for man, woman, child, leader, whoever is in this world. And so to break that all down and to break that all apart, you realize that the forces of evil, the forces of the devil, Satan, demons, etc., they can never create. They cannot create. They have no ability. They have authority. They do, but they do not have the ability to create. What does this mean? They have the screw tape letters, C.S. Lewis, Wormwood. Oh, dear Wormwood, young Wormwood. They can corrupt, they can destroy, they can deceive, they can trick, they can kill, they can do all of these things. That is the demonic, the ability to corrupt that which was intended to be good, but they never have the ability to create anything. And so when I look at people who are trying to destroy things, when I look at people and I say, are you trying to destroy or are you trying to build? Are you trying to unite in the right way and fit the puzzle pieces together? And you were talking about the scattering of the media landscape and scattering of the political landscape. Are you trying to fit the pieces together so that they will work better? Or are you someone who's trying to make the pieces fall apart because you want to shatter these things? And I think that when you use that as your rubric and use that as your understanding of where everything is going, I've found it to be very useful when I'm doing my dealings, whether it be in DC or wherever I am.
Okay, we can't make this content without the work of our sponsors and, their kind efforts to support us financially. So here's a message from one. It's pretty good. I remember while I was making it thinking, yeah. Do you want to support me? No, I don't. Yes, you do. Support me and support Rumble Premium. You won't only be supporting me, you'll get additional access to Mug Club, that's Crowder's gig, Timcast, that's Tim Paul's racket, and Glenn Greenwald's additional content. Join us on Rumble Premium. We make content every single week through Rumble because Rumble support free speech. When I was under attack from the British government and the British media, Rumble stood firm. Yes, of course, there's crazy people on Rumble. There's crazy people everywhere. There's a crazy person living under this hat. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have the right to speak freely together. By supporting Rumble Premium, you're supporting me and content creators like me. You get additional content, and what I will say even more, drink down deep on the delicious irony in this one, you get an ad-free experience. If you want an ad-free experience of Rumble, get Rumble Premium. In the meantime, stay free. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're out here. YouTube don't pay us. Why should we pay them? Filthy globalists. Scum, I was going to say, but it seems like a hurtful word. Anyway, click the link in the description to watch the rest of this. Me and him pray the rosary. I feel like that's pretty good. Let me know what you think in the comments in the chat. I like the belt of truth. The truth is the first part of the armament that has to go on in Ephesians around that time. And yes. I also like that our Lord said, I'm coming here to kick off. I like to put it into an English euphemism. I'm not coming here with a message of... Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russel Brand on Rumble. If you got Rumble Premium, you can participate in our new live lineup. And thank you, Tim Paul and Timcast, for the raid. Whether you're watching us on X or YouTube, ultimately you've got to make your way to Rumble where we can speak freely and openly about the issues that matter. For example, did you know that even the New York Times are willing to admit that we were badly misled about the event that changed our lives? The pandemic. Yeah, we were badly misled by the New York Times. It seems that the legacy media are finally catching up to where we were some time ago. We got some great stories. USAID is still the gift that keeps on giving. So whether you're watching us on Locals, hello you guys over there, or on Rumble Premium, or if you're on X or YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you're going to have to make your way out of that citadel of stinking corruption sooner or later. You can rely on us to tell you the truth about the stories that matter to you. Even Bill Maher, and I quite like Bill Maher as a matter of fact, even Bill Maher is now having conversations about the British government's deception during that integral time. And of course, I don't know if you know this about me, I'm a British citizen. The British government and British intelligence knew that we were being lied to about the pandemic as early as 2020. Let's have a look at Andrew Sullivan and Bill Maher discussing that.
Questions. Andrew, what do you think of news that British intelligence knew COVID was a lab leak in 2020 and officially ignored their report?
Not just knew, aided a 95% certainty. Same with the German intelligence service. March 2020. There's a new book out called COVID's Wake. I was reading it this last couple of weeks, and the core paper that killed off any idea that this was a lab leak in China, the proximal origin paper, which was produced with Fauci and Collins of the NIH and NIAID helping it along, was a lie, a conscious lie. that the people who looked at it, we now have their emails, are saying in the very first days of looking at the virus, this looks very man-made to us.
It was a control operation. It was a manipulation. Can you see, did you know that the CDC is pulling $11 billion worth of funding? It seems like the gig is truly up for them. Isn't it curious to watch the legacy media scrambling to get on board as jobs are lost in legacy media, as advertising revenue falls in legacy media? More and more people are starting to realize, oh no, we should have told the truth during the COVID pandemic. Is it too late for me to get a job on the Daily Wire? Will Rumble take us on board? Elon, please save us.
This is so friggin' obvious this is man-made.
Well,
so friggin' obvious, one of them said. And then they wrote the report saying there is no evidence that this was made in a lab. The question is why? Why would they lie to us about that? And they did.
Well, I can give you one answer, the New York Times. The New York Times said any questioning of this being from a lab was racist, which always struck me as odd because it seems much more racist to go, wow, these people are eating bats.
I know.
I mean, it's just one example, but a good example of why people lost faith in the left, because they do stupid things like that. Not to be an I told you so, but from the very beginning, I was saying this shouldn't even be political, but it's at least a 50-50 it came from the lab, and that in 50 years, I can't imagine people going, wait, you mean in 2020, there was this thing that escaped from a lab in Wuhan, that started in Wuhan?
I wonder how long it'll be before legacy media outright, flat out, without any kind of sophistry or mitigation, admit that they participated in a global deception. Let me know what you think about that in the comments and chat. Let's go back to it.
It started in Wuhan, and there was a lab in Wuhan that was studying it, and they didn't think that was connected, and they blamed it on bats, really? It just doesn't make any sense.
It makes a little bit more sense.
You can gaslight people so easily.
Yes. I don't think the Democrats are so much as fault as scientists who went along with this, knowing better. It's their integrity.
The scientists were responding to political and financial pressure. It's not like the scientists are the powerful ones. The problem is that we regarded science as the objective appraisal of information based on evidence, because that's what science should be, when in fact science has become a new orthodoxy because only the questions that are funded are getting asked and only the answers that are favourable are being published.
It's their integrity I'm concerned about, to actually lie and distort what they could see with their own eyes because they were afraid of politics. The other question is this. This lab was a gain of function lab. That means they were creating viruses.
Right.
Dangerous.
Is there anyone in the world who don't know what gain of function means at this point? We're all so well educated in this stuff. I know that there was a signature at a molecular level that demonstrated that this had been interfered with in a laboratory because of Bobby Kennedy, now head of the HHS, praise Jesus. I knew what Anthony Fauci's involvement was in the HIV pandemic, and because of the boldness and bravery of figures like Bobby Kennedy, we now have Jay Bhattacharya as head of the NIH. We'll be covering that story a little later. And also, because of this revolutionary moment, and let me know in the comments and chat if you agree with this, and I truly believe the pandemic was a revolutionary moment, we are more informed when it comes to reporting on stories like Ukraine and Russia, more informed when it comes to what's happening in the Middle East, and certainly we better understand cryptocurrencies now and whether or not particular cryptocurrencies are oriented towards centralized power, i.e. Bitcoin cannot be controlled, but this new digital European currency that's coming can be controlled. That's why we have to be cynical about it.
Viruses,
right?
Dangerous viruses to figure out how to protect you from them. This gain of function research was always dangerous. Everyone knew it was dangerous. Long time ago, you go back to 2015, you will find a big meeting in London where they say there's one lab in the world most likely to have a problem with this: Wuhan. Do you know who was the biggest supporter of gain-of-function research for the last 30 years? Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci. Now, remember that name. There's a reason he was given a...
Well, we will remember the name because legacy media presented him as a hero in an unending hagiography, whether it was late night shows or the songs or turned him into a sex symbol. This is a wonderful moment. Don't miss how significant this is. This is the legacy media, New York Times, HBO, all of the organizations that are part of a nexus of power that include Big Pharma, various regulatory bodies now blessedly taken over by people with common sense like Bhattacharya and Marty Makari as a result of Dr. Oz and Bobby Kennedy getting into positions of power. That is the one part of the post-2024 experiment that I'm totally without doubt about. Those guys are reliable. I believe in those people. I know them. They're good people. They're beautiful people. We're going to be okay there. But what's interesting is to watch how various institutions of power broadcast corruption, in particular media ones, are starting to try to reposition themselves. Bill Maher almost said, well, I've been saying from the very beginning that this was, no, man. People have been advocating for compliance, obedience, trust Big Pharma. You were told to be ashamed of yourselves if you didn't take vaccines, like I didn't, like maybe you didn't. What an extraordinary time. What a fantastic awakening. This is such a gift to anyone who's been skeptical of government power for a long time. It was such a revolutionary and revelatory new era.
And he was given a pardon back to 2014. There is something very wrong going on here.
Yeah, I also don't think he did it for nefarious reasons. There's an argument to be made. There's an actual intellectual debate to be had. Should gain-of-function research be done? We want to get ahead of viruses.
No, don't do it. Stop doing it immediately. It's plainly motivated by corrupt motives like the pursuit of profit, because the very people that caused this pandemic benefited from it and profited from it. There is no debate to be had about gain-of-function research. It should be banned immediately right now. Or how about this? How about some kind of referendum? How about a little thing called democracy? How about putting it before the very public that fund it and asking you, do you want it to continue? Let me know in the comments and chat. Are you happy for your tax dollars to go on funding USAID style projects? Are you happy for your tax dollars to go on funding mRNA style projects? It's you that pays for it. You are the quarry. You are the thing they're controlling and lashing their parasitical tubes onto to channel your energy, your money, your attention continually. If you haven't learned that lesson in the pandemic, then, pay attention, because we'll learn it now.
Ahead of viruses. The other response would be, it's too dangerous, because if it gets out, it's going to be bad. And that's what happened. But I don't think he's an evil guy, like some people do, who was trying to get rich off this.
No.
Okay, he just made the wrong call.
No, he knew from the get-go that the Wuhan lab had security levels that were the average of a dentist's office. They should have been at the highest level imaginable. He knew that. Not only that,
he made the wrong call.
The NIH and NID had helped fund it.
Right.
So you don't want to go down in history as the person who helped develop the virus that killed millions of people. You want to go down as the one who saved millions of people. That was at stake, a reputational matter.
A piece of a lot of this that seems insane to me is we are now years after, whether man-made or not, one of the worst disasters in human history. And we are genuinely less prepared for the next one than the last one.
It's not one of the worst disasters in human history. I could name 100 worse ones.
Fair enough, but it was bad. I didn't enjoy it.
I can't watch these people anymore, can you? I can't take them seriously anymore. I can't watch them trying to exculpate themselves from messes they participated in by amplifying messaging that should have been questioned from the beginning. Here is CNN pundit Dr. Lena Wen admitting some of the worst conspiracy theories were actually true.
But I could see how people may feel as if they cannot ask them, because maybe they did ask them, and what they got back, not from their physicians, but from somebody else, was, oh, well, this is a conspiracy theory, rather than addressing the question head on. And I know that
is this exhausting for you to just hear things that you were saying at the time happening? Because what I resent is the general tone. Oh, if only we'd known. We did know. We were talking about this. Then you can go and watch videos of me at the point that they're discussing this, talking with you about it. Not with like a kind of rabid certainty of a madman, but with a kind of inquiry of, this don't seem right. And that should always have been the tone. It should always have been, there's this vaccine available, it might work, might not, probably don't need it if you're a healthy young person. I remember Joe Rogan saying that at the time, being shut down for it. We might look into ivermectin just because it's white labelled now and not so profitable. That don't mean we should ignore the possibility. I don't think we can ever trust legacy media again on anything at all. Now, that might seem pretty sweeping, but I'd say that their model is so dependent on advertising dollars and that their ownership models are so sort of intertwined with corporatism that you've just got to strike them from the record. Whether that's the government-funded, state-funded, licence-funded BBC, that should be banned. New York Times, shut it down. They should all, like, what we learned in that period is these legacy media titles should be stamped out. Let me know in the comments and chat if you agree with that.
From my patients, I got asked questions specifically about the vaccine that they had heard from somewhere that were important to address and that there was some truth behind. For example, people were concerned about the impact of the vaccines on women were concerned about the impact of the vaccines on their menstrual periods. Well, as it turns out, there have been studies that have shown that there may be some changes to the menstrual period in the short term. But addressing that is not a conspiracy theory. It's addressing this question and then saying, here's the research that we know around this. Or I know that for some time, for the first couple of years, the questions around natural immunity from the immunity that you get from infection, those questions were all dismissed. Because yes, it is true that we didn't want people to just go out and have chickenpox parties and get infected all at once. But it's also true that you do have immunity after, not lifelong immunity, but you do get some degree of pretty good immunity after having infection. So I think that addressing those nuances and being clear with people about what we know and what we don't know and what we believe is the case based on ongoing research, but this could change. I think that leaning into the nuances rather than backing away and just saying, well, you're wrong and I'm right. And I think that may be a lesson that we learn, especially because we also know that if people keep on hearing that their questions are being dismissed, they're much more likely to go to the source, as you were saying, like an RFK Jr., who will say, well, let's ask this question. And you know what? If we can ask this question, why not also this question? If you think they're lying to you about this, then maybe they're also lying to you about X, Y, and Z.
Naomi Wolf had her entire career cancelled for asking exactly that question. She's a lifelong Democrat. She said that there was evidence that it's affecting women's menstrual cycles, that it's contributing to complications during birth. And for that, she was cancelled, kicked out of tent. What I would say this tells us is we can never trust the establishment again. That's it. Full stop. Now, never trust don't mean, line people up, get them into death camps. It just means treat them continually with a kind of skepticism. Okay, that's what you're saying. Is it possible you're saying that to assert control? Because while you're saying you're doing that to protect us or for humanitarian or philanthropic reasons, I'm going to bear in mind what I know about you guys, that you generally use care and concern, like you did in the pandemic, to assert control. That's what I thought then. That's what I think now. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and chat. If you're watching this on X, if you're watching this on YouTube, join us now on Rumble and get Rumble Premium if you want additional content from us and the rest of Rumble's fantastic free speech lineup. Here's a quick message from one of our sponsors. Rumble, Rumble, Rumble. Do you hear the chant across the world? That's the sound of people waking up to the necessity of free speech in China, Russia, France, Brazil. All of us want to be united by the sweet stream of freedom that is Rumble. Like taking a nice wee-wee after having a kidney stone removed, I assume. I've never had one. It's not my problem. I eat well. Get the Rumble app now and experience content like never before. It's available on Android and iOS, which I suppose is just an iPhone. Don't get confused. And you can take Rumble with you wherever you go when you're on the move or just relaxing at home, or maybe you're putting your hand in your butt crack and wiping it on a Cybertruck because you're mental. You've gone mad. You can listen to Rumble while you're doing that. Want to enjoy it on a big screen? No problem. Rumble's available on Apple TV, Roku, which pushes porn. Remember you told me that? Amazon Fire, LG Smart TVs, and Samsung TV apps, all giving you the power of Rumble at your fingertips, although you might have put your finger up your butt in a protest against a Cybertruck. Dirty pigs, yeah. Rumble's the platform that gives you the freedom to watch what you want when you want. Download the Rumble app today. Make sure to follow my channel to receive live notifications. Follow me! follow me, but ultimately follow him. And use Rumble. And don't put your own hand up your butt and wipe it on the side. I can't tell you how that undermines your protest. When is a cryptocurrency a good thing? When the government or a form of government can control it. This is the news, of course, that in October, which is not that long away, there will be a new Europe-wide digital currency. What? I thought Bitcoin was evil. I thought that these things led to Silk Roads and condemnation and crime. Well, let's have a look at how Simon Godek is reporting on the new ECB digital euro being launched in October. So, here's how it could operate. There could be real-time transaction tracking, potential for payment blocking, like in the Canadian trucker protest. Automatic tax deductions, less freedom. Restrictions on cash withdrawals. Did you see that amazing clip of that bloke having to justify how he was withdrawing his own money? That was ridiculous. Programmable money with expiration dates. They couldn't convince us voluntarily, so now they're using fear and most likely a new crisis to enforce this system upon us. This is nothing but a financial great reset. Total control over what you buy, where you go, and even what you eat. Well, who among us is surprised to see that kind of gambit playing out after the COVID era, which we've been discussing on the show today, where we learned that the fundamental aim of globalization is maximal control while masquerading as maximal concern. Let's learn a little more about this new crypto control currency.
On your second point, I tend to share your views. Nature doesn't like vacuum.
Nature doesn't like vacuum. Nature like Christian Lagarde, head of the European Bank. Nature like control. Nature like my scarf. Nature like me.
And we started working on the digital euro way back. Actually, when I started my term 5.5 years ago. And I'm not claiming, parentality on the digital euro, because my colleague Benoît Cœuré had already committed a speech on this matter before I arrived. But I certainly carried on with that project, and subsequently Fabio Panetta on the board, and then Piero Cipollone, who has replaced Fabio, have taken the lead together with a very, very good team which is focused on accelerating the pace and hopefully campaigning enough with all the stakeholders, meaning European Parliament, meaning European Council, meaning European Commission, so that we can eventually, not put to bed, but put to reality this digital euro. The deadline for us is going to be October of 25, and we are getting ready for that deadline, but we will not be able to move unless the other parties, the stakeholders as I call them, Commission, Council and Parliament, actually complete the legislative process, without which we will not be able to move. And I think it is critically important, and it seems to the agnostic or the skeptics, it seems to be more relevant and more of an imperative now than ever before, both on the wholesale and on the retail level, both.
Obviously, when you look at that, you can see how nefarious it is, particularly if you've looked at Simon Godek's post before, all of the possibilities for control that this new Europe-wide digital currency will grant. Let's have a look at the propaganda that they've used to lubricate our minds for the pelvic thrust of this new digital currency.
Do you want to know more about the digital euro?
Yeah, I want to know why you're doing it and how you're going to use it to control us and jail us.
Digital euro? Let's find out more. Evelyn, in 20 seconds, can you answer our questions? Why do we need a digital euro? Well,
why should we even trust you? Why should we ever trust another bureaucrat like you ever again? Why do you keep leading us into wars? Why did you spend so much money on those vaccines? How can we ever rely on our media institutions and bureaucratic institutions ever again after the pandemic era? I thought that cryptocurrencies were evil and bad and using too much energy and were an environmental threat. Does that mean that your entire ecological argument is as bogus as your claim to be wanting to protect people during the pandemic? What about migration? When you say that migration is in order to protect and preserve life of refugees that have been displaced as a result of imperialist activity. Is that a lie as well? Are you just trying to dissolve all of our sense of identity and connection to land and to tribe so you can control and corral us like sheep? You've got 20 seconds to answer that.
Well, our currency needs to keep up with how we want to pay. So currently, more than half of the people prefer to pay digitally, and there is not one single European way to do so. The digital euro would fill that gap.
What would a day in the life of the Europeans look like with a digital euro?
It would look a bit like being in a concentration camp, because that's the ultimate aim. The aim is for us to turn the world into a kind of airport where using security we can legitimize control, where we can tell you to sit down, shut up, take your shoes off, take your hat off, take your phone out of your pocket, keep perfectly still. We will not rest until the world is like an airport. Of course you won't accept that unless we can tell you that it's better for you or your safety is under threat. And that's why we're doing both of those things.
Well, Europeans would be able to pay with the digital euro alongside cash. And they can trust that they can pay everywhere in the euro area. They can trust that they can pay digitally while their privacy is secured. And last but not least, they can pay offline when there's no electricity connection or when there is no internet connection.
So, what's next?
Well, as the world...
She can't even do it within 20 seconds. Even that was a lie.
Well, as the world goes digitally, so should our currency. So that's why we are designing a digital euro to offer a seamless payment experience across Europe. But we need a strong legislation. That's why we're supporting European lawmakers, because they are deciding on the legislation needed. Together, we can bring European payments into the digital age.
Reject it, don't use it. It's filthy propaganda and control, as it always will be when it comes out of those mouths, that kind of banquette seat in those kind of cheesy graphics, and particularly that kind of electric blue suit. Here's a quick word from one of us, but that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. Let's have a quick word now from one of our partners. 1775. It ain't easy for me as an Englishman to say 1775. It was a tough time for us and the Redcoats, but 1775 coffee is a revolution that we can all participate in. You wake up every morning, you're like a cripple, aren't you? You're like Stephen Hawking without the brains. You're just a shuffling, wretched cripple. Well, what if I were to tell you that 1775 don't just put pep in your step, it's the fountain of youth. It's the literal fountain of youth reversing time. It actually made you younger, like reversing, I want to use these exact words, the ticking time bomb of existence itself. That's a pretty bold claim. The ticking time bomb of existence itself, that's a Faustian pact you're making there. Well, apparently 1775 coffee went full alchemist and brewed up rejuvenate. Don't panic in the comments. It's spelled J-U, rejuvenate, not none of that stuff. It's got CAAKG, an ingredient is scientifically proven to fight aging at the cellular level. Great. Because who the hell wants to just exist when you can flip the bird to aging along with every single cup? Take that, Mephistopheles, read Goethe. And it's still all the good stuff you'd expect from 1775, single origin beans. Can you hear the word bean without thinking of a clitoris? I can't. Small batch roasting. Specialty grade coffee. Small farms that probably have goats with PhDs in them, bean picking. Don't like hearing bean picking after I've just made it a clitoris. But now every cup is cranked up to superhuman levels, boosting energy, firing up metabolism, repairing muscles, and allegedly turning back the clock by up to 8 years in 7 months. And yes, actual science back this up, not some capitalist scam. Rejuvenate officially launches April 15th, but you can pre-order it right now like a proper rebel against the inevitability of entropy. Head over to 1775coffee.com, use the promo code BRAND for 15% off, and start drinking your age away. I mean, because normally drinking, it exacerbates the conditions of aging, but not this time. Oh, and every dollar you spend entitles you to win a cursed Cybertruck that damn near ruined our lives. And $30,000 cash. A Cybertruck that could be a Trojan horse which contains spiritual warfare, and 30 grand. Thank the Lord for small blessings. 2 such blessings are Jay Bhattacharya and Marty Makari, 2 outspoken advocates for common sense during the pandemic era whose voices were blessedly heard. We know that Jay Bhattacharya, friend of the show, experienced smears and attacks like anyone outspoken will experience from the legacy media and the centralized institutions of control. Well, thankfully now his integrity has been rewarded with a high-ranking position in government. As head of the NIH, he will decide what experiments and clinical trials get done, how they're funded, and what the conditions will be. And I can say from knowing him, he's a beautiful human being, and this is one of the great blessings of the 2024 election victory for the MAGA Maha movement and Trump in general. Let's have a look now at the confirmation of the positions of Marty Makary and Bhattacharya. Pretty good news. Here's how 4 years ago, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was on a COVID blacklist on Twitter the day he was confirmed for the director of the NIH. Turns out that actually democracy can do some pretty positive things. Extraordinary. Now, here's Robert Malone, friend of the show. Bhattacharya was confirmed as the director of the NIH today, and not a single Democrat voted to confirm him. The rot in the Democratic Party has festered to the point where they can no longer vote on qualifications, only along party lines. Shame on them. Difficult to argue with Robert Malone's position there, particularly if, like me, you've had a look at the Senate confirmation hearing to see your friend of mine, Bernie Sanders, struggling through principles that he once claimed to believe in and refusing to confirm Bhattacharya and actually maybe not even saying his name correctly. Let's have a look.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 46. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination. Department of Health and Human Services.
Nomination, Department of Health and Human Services. I don't even like you.
And Human Services. Dayanta Bhattacharya of California to be Director of National Institutes of Health.
Get his name right.
Stanford professor, physician who specializes in this stuff, seems like he'd be the last person you'd censor, correct?
Here's Bhattacharya talking to Tucker at the height of the pandemic and telling the truth in a way that actually makes his ascent to power something to applaud.
You'd censor, correct?
I mean, the key thing here, Tucker, that I think that folks need to know, what they wanted to do, and this I think is government actors and also old media, old owners of Twitter, they wanted to create this illusion of consensus about the science.
That's right.
That didn't actually exist. They wanted to fool people into thinking that we were following the science, when in fact there was a robust debate among scientists about what the right thing to do was. And the consequence is schools closed, businesses closed, unvaccinated people lost their jobs even because of mandates, even though none of the science none of the persuasive science actually supported any of those positions. People suffered as a consequence of this censorship, and of course, it's an abstract violation of my civil rights, my First Amendment rights. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that American people were denied a debate, an honest debate, and I believe that had that honest debate taken place, none of those policies would have been put in place, and all of that suffering could have been avoided.
This may be a crazy and divisive time, but with men like Marty Makary and Jay Bhattacharya rising to significant positions of power, the area of American health and human services, at least, I believe will radically improve. The same can be said, of course, of a figure like Bobby Kennedy, a brave, bold, outspoken man who, as a result of sticking to his principles, has been rewarded with control over the biggest governmental department on the planet. Did you know that? Do you know it's even bigger than the various military departments? Pretty extraordinary and exciting times. We may have lost Dan Bongino to the FBI, but we've gained many, many viewers, and we've gained a great health and human services organisation. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. Here's a quick word from one of our sponsors. We've always believed in empowering voices, no matter how unpopular. Now we're taking the fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollary dues, even brands like Dirty Dunkin' Donuts, which I think of as being a bit like the Dunkin' Donut of that Tesla guy that wiped his hand on his butt. Remember him, this guy? Dunkin' Donuts is the donut equivalent of that. The free speech hating pigs, claiming that Rumble had a right-wing culture. How dare they? I mean, look at just some of these comments. Rumble does not have a right-wing culture. We are doing our very best to include everyone. That's from a Mr. A. Hitler. Look at this one. Rumble is my favourite site. I love it. I listen to it every night by firelight. That's from a Mr. Ku clucks, clap. Like, how can anyone have a problem with Rumble, one of the great stations? We're not here to fit a mold. We're here to defend free expression. That is the milk of free speech coming out of the tit, or just a tit, really. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer you Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russel Brand. Hey, I'm him. Dr. Disrespect. That's my actual doctor. Timcast. Yeah, Timpo. The Mug Club. Yeah, go on, Crowder. We're going to come there. We're going to go on that show. It's more than a subscription. It's a stand for free speech. You're subscribing to freedom. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium for a very limited time. You can get $20 off the annual plan using the code RumbleLive. Visit rumble.com/premium and claim your special sale discount today. Together, we can turn the tide. Whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching, your support helps keep free speech alive. Join Rumble Premium and help keep free speech alive, baby. Trapped in me, there's an African child. There's a little African child trapped in me. Can I use USAID to get it out? Or would that just not work? USAID was a blag, always a blag. Ah, you racist, you horrible racist. Here is a former African Union ambassador explaining to Al Jazeera why USAID was a massive con. This should